My name is Brian Van Hook, and I'm the Regional Director of the Florida Small Business Development Center at FIU. I'd like to officially welcome you to this really great webinar that's focused on growing your business through exports. This is not a hyperbole, this is not exaggeration. We have a rock star panel today of experts to talk to you about different resources, different tips and tricks and things like that that you can do to grow your business, specifically internationally. And I want to take a minute to just talk about SBDC, and I was also going to turn it over to my colleague, Matt Rocca with SFMA to talk about them too. But we have really great panelists, Shelly Bernal from SBDC, who's International Trade Specialist. We have Sarah Eikenberry from First American Bank, and then we have the world famous Mary Hernandez from the Small Business Administration in the South Florida District Office. The Small Business Development Center in particular, our program is basically here to help you start and grow your business. And so we work with about 1,000 clients a year. We have business specialists such as Shelly that focus on specific areas that can help you grow, whether that's marketing, international trade, government contracting, obviously access to capital, which we're going to touch on today, financial management. One of the key pieces that we can help you with, which Shelly's going to talk about, is research, information, kind of knowing which markets to go to, how to get into it. And there's a lot of great programs through the state of Florida to do it. And as I mentioned, we work with about 1,000 clients a year. Last year, we had a really great year, and I would thank Shelly and the rest of our team. It's a great year for us to have a record year helping businesses because we helped over 2,000 businesses last year. We helped businesses access to over $70 million in capital. 45 million of that was related to the COVID disaster relief. We also help businesses to secure $70 million in government contracts. So if we can help you in any way, please reach out to us. My colleague Jesus Padilla and Brianna is there. And with that, I'm going to turn over to Matt to talk a little bit about SFMA. And just thanks again to all of our partners, and thanks again to you guys for being here.
Thank you, Brian, and good morning, everybody. I've seen all of our panelists in action, so I know everyone's in for a treat for today, and this is going to be a great webinar. So thanks for everyone for being here, and thank you, Brian, for the opportunity. The South Florida Manufacturers Association, we represent a territory that includes close to 6,000 or just over 6,000 manufacturers. We cover anywhere from Monroe County north into the Treasure Coast, which is Martin, St. Lucie, Indian River, and Okeechobee. But our mission is simple. It's really to serve manufacturers, and this is a perfect webinar for manufacturers because trade is heavily involved in manufacturing and in the movement of goods and services and the things that our manufacturers utilize. And you can see here the impact. We're having a significant impact on manufacturing to the industry as a whole. 84 clients have really been engaged with us. You can see the numbers here, but the overall impact that we're having to the industry is over 1.2 billion, and that's growing. We'll have some updated numbers soon, but I just wanted to thank everyone for being here, just introduce us a little bit, and our goal again is manufacturers, representing those involved in manufacturing, those that are manufacturers. So we're excited to be here and look forward to the panel, and thank you again for the opportunity.
Yeah. And then with that, I think it's helpful for you guys to hear from me and Matt, but I think you really want to hear from our speakers. And
I agree.
So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our panel so that they can kind of start the discussion. And I would just encourage you, if you do have any questions, please put them in the Q&A. Folks tend to put them in the chat, but we want to basically answer them as they come in. So please use the Q&A function. If you have like a technical issue or any other kind of stuff, you can use the chat. And then we will get to your questions at the end. And give us some good questions, guys. Don't make it easy on these panelists. Give them a hard time. They have a lot of really good knowledge they can give you. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the panel. I think Shelly, you're up first.
As mentioned, my name is Shelly Bernal, and I am a business consultant at the SBDC. As a business owner, have you ever wished that you had more information to make better decisions? Well, that is exactly what I can help you with. We have subscriptions to databases that allow us to get access to data that you normally wouldn't have access to without paying for it and provide it to you at no cost. And I would like to introduce you to the 3 most popular sources of data that I work with. One is the Global Industry Analysis. The second is trade flow data. And the third is companies listed in other countries or looking for customers or partners in other countries. Next. And so with the first one, this is an example of global industry analysis. I'm going to use the industry of ice cream because it puts a smile on my face, and I think everyone can relate. And so with this, we are looking at the consumption data or the size of a market for this particular product category. And in this case, I have ranked the markets by their size, and we can see that the US is the largest market for the consumption of the product category ice cream and frozen desserts, followed by China, Japan, Italy, Germany, and Brazil. Next slide. With trade flow data, what we're looking at is the movement of goods between countries. And in this example of ice cream, I pulled up the countries that import the most ice cream. On the left, Germany imports more ice cream than any other country in the world, followed by United Kingdom, France, Netherlands, Spain, and Belgium. And on the right, I changed the search criteria and wanted to see which countries are importing the most ice cream from the US. And Mexico is the country that imports the most ice cream from the US, followed by Saudi Arabia, Canada, Australia, UAE, and the Netherlands. And so just with this example of 2 resources and 3 examples, you can see that depending on how you research and find data, you could actually get 3 completely different lists of the priority ranking of countries. And that is part of the analysis that we do. The more information we can get access to, the more ways that we can examine it and analyze it to determine which countries would have the highest probability of success for your product or service. Next. And the third resource that I'm going to share with you today is compiling lists of companies who could potentially be your customers in other countries. In this case, with ice cream, I looked up in Canada all the companies that are classified with the industry code of grocery wholesale. And there are almost 12,000 companies in Canada listed with this industry code. So to make it usable, we would need to continue adding more search criteria to reduce that list. And then it would require filtering and sorting to come up with a target customer list. But this is an example of another source of information that we have available to share with you. And I partner with Enterprise Florida. If you haven't heard of them, they are also an international trade promotion agency. And in this particular case, they offer grants and scholarships to businesses for an export marketing plan that I write for you. In those plans, what I include is the industry research. So from the examples that I just showed, I then do a weighted analysis using a prioritization for each of the indicators to come up with a final ranking of countries based on the probability of success. And then the third section of the plan is market entry strategies for the highest ranking markets or countries for the company. And these plans usually are 100 pages or more. They're very in-depth. And because of the partnership with Enterprise Florida, after I write the plan for the business, then Enterprise Florida supports you in the implementation of the plan. They have offices in other countries. They have resources to assist the business in actually boots on the ground, doing the implementation of the plan that was written to secure the business. And this has a cost to it. The cost for writing an export marketing plan is $5,000. Enterprise Florida, for eligible companies, offer the grant or scholarship for $4,500, so that it is only a cost of $500 to the company. So I just shared with you 3 resources of information that we have. 1 is the global industry analysis, 2 is the trade flow data, and 3 is the partner search information in 2 formats. 1 is I shared the data, the raw data with you at no cost at all. Or 2, I write a plan for you for $500 under the Enterprise Florida Trade Grant for Export Marketing Plan, in which they pay the grant or scholarship of the $4,500. If you are interested in a more in-depth description of the information available or the methodology, if you have your own data points and you also have conflicting and varying information and want to know how to analyze that, I will be doing another webinar on that topic specifically next Thursday. And the webinar is also free, that you can sign up for and attend. And now we have even more exciting information available to you regarding trade financing from my colleague, Sarah at First American Bank.
Thank you very much, Shelley. So as Shelley mentioned, I'm Sarah Eikenberry with First American Bank, Vice President of Commercial Lending, and we've been operating in the state of South Florida for over 15 years now. We came down here primarily to assist with commercial lending for exporters and have expanded beyond that. So wanted to talk with you today a little bit about different financing options that are available when selling internationally, how to reduce payment risk from your buyers, as well as how those 2 things tie together. So this slide here details different payment structures on a scale of a risk scale from both the exporter and the importer's perspective. So as an exporter, you would ideally like to receive payment as soon as possible. However, that's not always the option. Cash up front would reduce the payment risk, improve your cash flow, but it's not always the best competitive option depending on who your buyer is. They're going to want terms. As you can see from the importer side of the scale, they're going to also want to control their cash flow and their payment risk. So they're going to want to pay you as late in the sales cycle as possible. So the challenge then becomes, how do you meet the buyer's demand on offering those open terms, as well as ensuring you have the available working capital to meet that sale and reduce the payment risk from your buyer at the end. So on the next slide, these are different working capital financing solutions, whether it be conventional bank financing, government guaranteed financing, non-traditional non-bank financing. There's a wealth of options out there available to you depending on what your structure is and what your growth needs are. So working capital is intended to bridge the gap between when you need to use your cash and when you get paid. That time period creates a cash need that financing could help with. So these are a couple different line of credit options. An open line of credit is going to be your most simplistic option. You have an available amount, you borrow as you need it and pay it down when you don't. An asset-based line of credit, also commonly referred to as an ABL or a monitored line, is when you're borrowing against a pool of working capital assets, typically your AR and your inventory. So this option can allow for a larger line of credit as your borrowing needs increase because of the monitoring nature, you can get a higher advance rate on those assets. So this is a good tool for people who have a steady sales pool, a steady growth, and that pool of assets available to them to borrow against. And sorry, last slide again. And transactional line of credit is similar. You're again borrowing against your receivables, but on a per order basis. So this can be used when you have a larger project, maybe a higher buyer concentration. That's going to be a little bit higher level of monitoring. So it makes the financial institution a little bit more comfortable being able to look at it transaction by transaction, so you can get that high advance rate and still sell to that larger customer. PO financing is a really, it falls under this transactional line of credit option as well. And a couple examples of that is, for instance, if you are a wholesale distributor that is drop shipping direct from your supplier to your end buyer, your supplier may require payment before shipment, but you have yet to invoice your buyer because you haven't invoiced it. I'm sorry, you haven't shipped the documents, shipped the product, received the shipping documents. So you have a period of time where you have yet to create a receivable. You may be able to lend, to borrow against that end PO for that period of time. A similar example, but on a longer scale, would be a custom machine manufacturer. There's a very long lead time between when your buyer places that order and when you actually produce the equipment and are able to ship it. So a transactional option is a good structure for that as well, to be able to look to access that cash a little bit sooner. Factoring falls under the non-bank financing. Different than a line of credit, a factoring company will actually purchase your receivables at a discount, and they will proceed with the collection from the buyer directly. So this is a tool that's often used for newer companies that don't have as strong of a history or as strong of a balance sheet. On the next slide, as we talked about before, if you're offering terms to your clients, you're opening up yourself for risk against non-payment. So there's a lot of tools that have been put in place to help a buyer feel more secure about their ability to go sell on those open terms in the global market and protect themselves on the end. The primary one there is trade credit insurance. So that simplistically is an insurance company will underwrite your individual buyer, provide you a limit that you can sell to them under that insured basis. And then ultimately, if they fail to pay you at the end, you can file a claim with the insurance company. So this is a really great tool to protect yourself. And additionally, almost always necessary when you're looking to borrow against that receivable. Because the Uniform Commercial Code does not apply internationally, there aren't the same collection rights afforded to foreign receivables as there are domestic receivables. So a financial institution is often going to require you have credit insurance on that receivable in order to borrow against it. A letter of credit is also a great tool for you to use if you aren't able to obtain credit insurance or maybe on a one-off project. That is a commitment by a bank on behalf of the buyer that based on the terms and conditions of the LC, once those are met, the bank guarantees that they will pay you on behalf of the buyer. So it's a guaranteed payment from their bank. Lastly is documentary collection services. This does not award you the same security that credit insurance and letter of credit does, but if you are unable to obtain cash up front, it is a good tool. It basically puts the banks as the middleman in between the transaction. So you would provide your export documents to the bank, who would then only release them to the buyer once that payment is made. The bank, however, is not guaranteeing that your buyer will have the ability to make that payment. They will simply hold on to those documents until that payment has been made. So on the next slide, just to summarize, it's important to be proactive, understand what your credit options are, so that when you're out there in the market, you can comfortably go make that sale knowing you have the financing available, as well as the credit insurance available. You want to make sure you minimize that payment risk. Do not rely on a long-term relationship as security of payment. I think as we've all unfortunately seen over the last year, you don't know what will happen. So just because someone has always paid doesn't mean it will continue that way. So you want to make sure that you have that security, you can sleep at night. And of course, you can use those tools to help you borrow against that. Credit insurance as well is a great information tool. Shelley spoke earlier about the power of information. Credit insurance can offer you basically an outsourced credit department. So you can look to them to understand different markets, different buyers, and whether or not you should make that sale. And that helps you make an educated decision. So of course, you want to find the right partners to help you with all of that. Shelley, of course, can help you look into different markets, help you find new customers. A bank can help you finance that. A credit insurance company to work with you to help protect your receivables. And Mary next is going to talk about some of the other government resources that are available on all these fronts.
Thank you, Sarah, and good morning, everyone. It's truly a pleasure to be part of today's Grow Your Business Through Exports webinar and to have the opportunity to share some of the tools available through the U.S. Export Assistance Center, tools that can help your small business achieve global success. So I'm one of 21 export finance managers located across the country that report to the U.S. Small Business Administration. but many of us are co-located with other federal partners in the U.S. Export Assistance Center, better known as the USIAC, because we're the federal government and we love acronyms, but it's also quicker to say. I'm based in the Miami USIAC, along with colleagues from the U.S. Commercial Service and the Export-Import Bank of the United States. We each provide complementary programs and services to help U.S. exporters with international marketing intelligence, risk mitigation to protect you against non-payment by your foreign buyers, and financing, which is what I do. Now, although SBA isn't a direct lender, we partner with banks across the country, including First American Bank. SBA guarantees the loans that you apply for through a bank. And this is especially helpful when applying for export financing, which banks may not offer conventionally. Next slide. So SBA's export loan programs help small businesses meet a wide range of financing needs, not only for direct exporters, but also for indirect exporters. Indirect exporters are those businesses who sell to other U.S. businesses and they in turn export the products or supply chain. In fact, our export loans are helping businesses achieve roughly $2.3 billion in export sales per year. So here we have a quick snapshot of SBA's export loan programs. Export Express allows for quick access to capital for businesses that need financing up to $500,000. You can actually apply for a line of credit prior to finalizing an export sale or even visiting a foreign market. Getting your financing lined up ensures that adequate financing is in place before you agree to contract terms. And as you grow your international sales, you can then use the Export Working Capital Program, or EWCP, to fulfill specific export orders by covering your cost of goods or financing foreign receivables and export inventory via revolving lines of credit up to $5 million. The International Trade Loan can help a company that has been affected by foreign competition and needs to retool or expand to better compete. It can also help existing firms that want to begin or grow their international sales. Next slide. These examples further show the value of these loans, which is to provide you a competitive edge as you seek out new customers while enhancing the service that you provide to existing clients. So for example, rather than requiring advance payments from your customers, you can offer payment terms that make you more competitive through the use of an EWCP line of credit supported by your foreign receivables and export inventory as collateral. Rather than depleting your current cash resources, you can use an Export Express loan to proactively market your products or services to foreign customers. In other words, export development activity. An international trade loan can help in the purchase of machinery or equipment to expand your export capacity and meet the growing demand for your product, or to reshore the production of your products. But if you do ask your foreign buyers for a down payment or advance payment, they may require standby letters of credit to guarantee or protect that advance payment. So EWCP or Export Express loans can support requests for standby LCs. So you can see that SBA's export loans are very flexible and are designed to cover most short-term or long-term costs to help your small business achieve global success. Next slide, please. As I previously mentioned, the U.S. Commercial Service, part of the U.S. Department of Commerce International Trade Administration, is also a key USIAC partner. The Commercial Service has a network of trade specialists in 106 offices whose mission is to help U.S. companies start exporting or expand exports to new global markets. Specifically, they can help companies develop their export marketing strategies with market diversification tools, customized market research, and initial market checks. Or they can assist in selecting overseas markets and identifying customers via an international partner search or virtual introductions, international company profiles also, which provide you with potential buyers' background and suitability, and they promote trade events to bolster brand awareness and market exposure through in-country promotions, trade shows and trade missions, and U.S. exporter directories. Next slide. Trade specialists with the U.S. Commercial Service work with their colleagues in 150 offices in 80 countries, representing 96% of global exports. So they literally cover the world. They also have 20 global teams that provide industry or regional resources and solutions. For example, the Advanced Manufacturing Team, which works with companies across the U.S. to export innovative American products and services. They focus on promoting exports of machinery, materials, and technology related to additive manufacturing and automation, or as I've heard them say, the things that make the things. Next slide. And yet another important partner is the Export-Import Bank of the United States, also known as EXIM for short. EXIM is the official export credit agency of the United States, and their mission is to support American jobs by facilitating international sales of U.S. goods and services. With the help of about 500 employees in 13 offices nationwide, EXIM assists thousands of small businesses, some with only sales of $1,000. And although they support large deals, small business transactions alone represent nearly 90% of all transactions at EXIM. Their most popular product for small business is export credit insurance. And as you can see on this slide, so export credit insurance is just like regular insurance, a policy similar to the one you have protecting your car or your home. But in this case, it's protection from foreign buyer non-payment. And research shows that getting paid is the #1 concern of US exporters. So credit insurance provides risk mitigation in the event of non-payment. It can be used as a sales tool because it empowers US exporters to offer competitive credit terms up to 180 days or up to 1 year for machinery and capital equipment. And it can help with financing, maximizing cash flow, because most banks will finance up to 90% of the value of foreign receivables if they're insured. Next slide. EXIM covers up to 95% of your company's sales invoice against non-payment due to commercial and political risk. Commercial risk could include bankruptcy, while political risk could be war or insurgency, and you can get non-payment protection for one buyer or a few buyers or even your entire portfolio. And you basically pay as you ship, sometimes as little as 55 cents on $100. Many buyers now expect credit terms, and US companies that are unable to extend credit may lose out on valuable sales opportunities. So this can be a powerful marketing tool and sometimes can be your competitive edge to win sales for your company. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Brian.
Thanks, Mary. Guys, I know a lot of you guys, I see some friendly faces in the attendees in the audience. So I know you guys are not shy. I know you have a couple of questions. So I'd encourage you guys to put some additional questions in the chat. We've had a couple and some that we've been able to answer. But in the meantime, while folks are kind of thinking of some questions, I was just going to ask you guys to start. Number one, Brianna, they keep asking, are we able to share the slides? Because I know we're recording the presentation, so we will have a copy of the link on YouTube that folks can watch it later. But I think we will also be sharing the presentation as well. afterwards. So I think that was a common question. But I was just going to ask the panel in terms of COVID. Obviously, when you have any type of a disasters or any type of economic issues, there's always challenges and there's always opportunities. Can you guys talk about some of the challenges posed for exporters, either folks that are new to exporting or folks that are already exporting from COVID, but also opportunities that are available now? Can you guys just kind of address some of those either challenges or opportunities?
Well, I can mention one thing that I've noticed as a trend is that I have been working with companies who were selling to their customers in advance. So they were collecting before the goods were actually shipped to the customers. And that worked for years. And what those companies have come to me about recently, just since COVID, is that their customers can no longer, they don't have the cash flow. They can no longer do that. And now they're asking for credit terms. And so those companies have had to look towards financing programs because they also don't have the cash flow to be holding that gap in money. But they've been looking towards these programs and these partners to find solutions so that they can continue their sales.
Thanks. Mary or Sarah, do you guys have anything to add?
I'd add to that as well that payment has been the largest concern for our buyers over the last year because they have seen a slowdown in payment from that. So having, working capital financing available beforehand as well as credit insurance has helped those customers stay afloat to be able to carry that receivable for a longer period of time. Obviously, in this market, it can be a little bit more difficult to obtain financing if you didn't have it previously due to reduction in sales, as well as credit insurance. The credit insurance market has pulled back a little bit, waiting to see, what kind of happens as this international market opens back up. So that's one of the key things is be proactive and get that ahead of time so that you can help cover that in a future situation like this. We have had a lot of exporters also turn to look for domestic opportunities. So I will point out as well that these tools that we've discussed today, a lot of them are available for domestic companies as well. So if you're selling domestically, you can also insure those receivables. And there are conventional financing options that allow you to borrow against both foreign and domestic receivables.
Thanks.
Yeah, I agree. I've also seen the same effects from COVID on small businesses, exporters that I already work with and that have financing through SBA, but we've tried to work closely with them to accommodate, to provide some flexibility in being able to maintain customers with those extended terms and not being out of formula on their line of credit, but definitely credit insurance is key moving forward. So something that all of the partners, whether federal, state, local, private sector partners, all working together to make sure that our U.S. businesses are protected and have the right tools to be able to move out of COVID and grow.
Cool. And then we did have a couple of questions from the audience, guys. So me giving them a little bit of time to think did help out. In terms of Monica had a question. She talked about how she's endured high inventory in many countries. The retailers have returned stock back to the distributor, which has forced them to not buy from us for months. Are there any loans available for these type of situations?
I guess my main question there would be, where is the inventory located? If the inventory is domestic, then yes, you can borrow against that. If it is outside of your control, held internationally, that is not something that you'd be able to borrow against under a typical bank program, as well as the government guaranteed programs.
Cool.
I would like to make a comment about that. I agree, Sarah. I'm not speaking on the comment about loans, but I would like to share something. I actually have been working with a company who had that same issue, and he had inventory in Latin American countries, and there were returns and there was stock piling up, and he wasn't getting orders. And what he did was very innovative, and that's why I want to share it in this moment. he actually implemented online direct to consumer sales channels on behalf of his retail channel to move the product out to the consumers, because the retailers weren't set up online. And that was one reason why they had speculated that the product was not moving out to the consumers. And that worked. And he's been getting new orders. And now he has a whole nother issue, of course, because he's importing from China. So he has issues with the supply chain, but he doesn't have issues with not getting orders. And so that could be an innovative solution.
Mhm. Yeah. And then this might be for Mary or for Sarah. Wilbert had a question. Is there a list of requirements for the credits? I think maybe credit insurance. We don't export, but our customers that use SAP as their SCM system do. I can extend the info to them requirement. So was that helpful?
I think what they might be getting at is how you underwrite the individual buyers for credit insurance. And that's not done at the bank level, but that's done through the credit insurance company, whether it be Axum or a private carrier. And they have a wealth of information and a database that they look to initially to provide a limit. If they need more, then they would reach out to see what the sales turn is, payment terms, as well as potentially financial information from that end buyer. To be able to determine a credit limit.
Yeah. And then Kathy had a question. She's a licensed distributor in risk management for payments. How is the middleman, the bank, chosen for documentary collection services?
For documentary collection services, it's the exporter and the buyer's bank that would work together in that instance. So you as the exporter would provide the documentation to your bank, who would then share it with the buyer's bank as soon as payment is made. So you just have to see if that's something that your institution participates in.
Cool. And then Monica had a follow-up question. Would this investment be considered as a marketing loan since we have to set up e-commerce platforms overseas? So I guess following up on her high inventory question.
Mary, maybe you can speak to that a little bit on the SBA side of that. If any of those programs are available to cover marketing.
Right. So it seems, she mentions or uses the word investment, but these are costs associated with expanding her international markets. So yes, our loan programs can be used for export development activity, including, costs, domestic costs associated with being able to expand those sales. So yes, there's financing available. We have some flexible programs that would help cover those costs.
And then speaking of the financing, Mary, what's the process to start, like basically to apply for an export loan? Like where can they go?
Right. So I always recommend that you start with the bank that you currently have your banking relationship with. It might be that you qualify for a conventional loan. You don't need the SBA guarantee, in other words. So if for some reason they're not able to provide the financing that you need, I would then encourage you to reach out to me or Sarah. We have several banks that participate with SBA's export loan programs, whether it's just one or all three. So we can make sure to put you in touch with an active lender.
Okay. And then Shelley, Marcelo had a question related to what are the requirements today to receive the Enterprise Florida grant?
Yes, on some of the programs, there is a requirement for US manufactured goods. And some of the programs, there's a requirement for Florida manufactured goods. In the case of the Enterprise Florida grant for the export marketing plan and for anything else, they do have the requirement of Florida manufactured goods because they're funded from the state of Florida, that Enterprise Florida is. And so that's where the grant stems from. For information or data, there is no requirement. So at the SBDC, not only do we not have a requirement on where the goods are manufactured for exports, I also spend a significant amount of my time on the import side. So we work with all small businesses. So really, you will need to find out from every organization as to what their requirements are for the support that they can provide individually.
Okay, sounds good. And then Wilbert just had a follow-up. Who is the right person to contact for the export credit insurance? He said he wants to share the info with his customers. Some of them are export auto parts, other export appliances, cosmetics.
Yes, so if they're interested in the Exim Bank credit insurance program, they can reach out to me. I'm more than happy to provide my email address and phone number. Is that okay if I do that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so my email address is Mary, M-A-R-Y .Hernandez@sba.gov. My cell phone is 305-968-8425. So reach out to me. I can make sure that I put you in contact with my colleagues at Exim Bank. It may be that private insurance may be best, but we can definitely point you in the right direction.
And Mary, since you're giving out numbers, since you're giving out like phone numbers and cell phones, how can folks get in touch with the USIAC, with the Export Assistance Center folks too?
Yeah, so right now we're in the same situation as so many of my colleagues, small businesses. We are working remotely. But again, if you reach out to me via email or call me on my cell, I'm in daily communication with my colleagues at the USIAC, as well as our state, local, private sector partners. So if you start with me, again, I can make sure to connect you with the right folks.
Yeah, and we would say don't be shy, guys, because these are your tax dollars. And so you can definitely take advantage of those services, and you can basically work with them to help grow your business. They have the same mission, just like SFMA, just like Sarah, just like us, to basically help to grow your business. And the best part, and Mary, they're asking in the chat, if you could put your email address in the chat.
Sure, I'll do that right now.
I think you're the most popular presenter, Mary. So I was gonna encourage everybody, guys, kind of last call, any other questions? Please don't be shy. Don't let these guys off the hook for this panel. We got a really great panel organized together. So I'd encourage you to put a couple more questions in on it. Monica was saying thank you. I would say kind of this is your chance. This is your shot to get it. I know it's always good to get resources and kind of contact information, but I'm sure there's a lot of questions kind of brewing around. So kind of take my challenge, ask one more question. And then Monica wanted your email address too, Shelley. So if you could put that in the chat. Okay. Well, I would just kind of, as we close out, I guess, then would each of the panelists just want to do like some closing thoughts or kind of reiterate the points, or anything you were kind of saving as like the golden nugget for the takeaway? I'd start with you, Mary, since you're the most popular one, apparently. We didn't have that in the poll, but I can just tell by the questions. Did you want to kind of leave something to leave folks with, or something you didn't cover?
You know, I would just encourage folks to take the next step. It doesn't hurt to have an initial phone call. You know, we'll do team calls, you know, including all of the partners. We can help you think through, you know, some of the ideas that you have. So I would encourage you to take that first step. And again, you have so many resources available to you. Please take advantage.
And then Sarah, did you want to go any other points from the banking side, kind of what you're seeing? Or
to add on to what Mary's saying, you know, information's key. Get ahead of it. Have these conversations. Any company can use any combination of these financing tools depending on what their needs are. So it's important to have those conversations with your lender about where you're looking to go, so they can plan accordingly. First American Bank is a SBA lender, as well as authorized under the Exim Working Capital Program as well. So when we look at a buyer or a potential borrower, we're looking at any potential options, conventional, government guaranteed, whatever it might be, just to make sure we know what makes sense for you. not trying to fit you into a box. So have those conversations. It's about advising on the right path.
Great. And then Shelley, you have anything on your end?
Well, on my end, as I mentioned at the very end of what I discussed today about market research and information and data, I am doing an hour-long in-depth presentation next Thursday. It's also at no cost. And so if you are interested in seeing more examples, examples that I used today were very straightforward so that everyone could understand them. But we do have access to more complicated cases that are not a product. Maybe it's a service, or maybe it's sales to B2B. And so there's not direct consumption data available. We do have access to other resources that combined can fill in some of the picture to help make better decisions.
Okay, cool. And then I was gonna turn it to SFMA Matt or Aaron if they had anything, but I see we did get a question from Wilbert. I guess he's kind of the most popular like attendee because he's had the most questions. So, and the name's familiar, so I know that we worked with him in the past, but is there any, his question was, are there any limitations to sales software projects with licensing, hosting, services, or just for goods? So any limitations regarding, I guess, financing on software projects?
With financing,
Yeah.
financing amounts.
Mhm.
So SBA's loan programs, depending on which program they're going to be using, Export Express, $500,000, International Trade Loan and EWCP, $5 million. If they outgrow SBA, we can transition them to Exim Bank. They are not capped on the financing side. There's some unique, eligibility criteria that they have, but again, that's a conversation we can have. If there are questions about the equipment itself and whether it can be exported, the commercial service folks can help guide that conversation. Because I think there may have been a couple of things touched on there.
Yeah. And then I was gonna note, since we kind of do have maybe a few more minutes, I did see Daisy is on the webinar. I saw her on here. Mary, did you want to talk about kind of how you guys work with Daisy and kind of the role that they have in terms of assisting businesses?
Yes. So again, another fantastic partner that we work with at the state level. And Daisy and I, again, constant communication. There are times that there is a small business, an exporter that may be just starting out, quite isn't ready for SBA financing. So I'll reach out to Daisy at FEFC, we'll discuss it, and she may be able to get them started. And she will, work with them and then help them grow and graduate them back to SBA. I may then hand them over to Exim Bank. So again, a very crucial partnership with FEFC because businesses may be, newer in that export arena and need the support of FEFC to start.
Cool. So we got a shameless plug for Daisy. So that's good. It's always good to see Daisy on. And then I think they were saying they were looking for your email again, Mary. As I said, you're most popular. If you could post it again in the chat. I think a lot of people posted after you, so just repost it. Your phone number and email address. And if not, guys, Brianna can get it to you after, so don't sweat it. And then I was gonna ask Matt or Aaron if they had anything on behalf of SFMA, anything to close out with. And I see Mr. Ramirez was asking for Sarah's email and phone number. Brianna, we'll get that to you after. We did post it in the chat. It's in the chat. And okay, and yeah, Sarah, people keep asking for your info again. Okay, don't sweat, guys. The Mary and Sarah's information, we will send that in the follow-up email. Brianna will. So don't worry about that. And also this will be recorded. So if you want to watch it, you can slow it down when Mary gives her email address and her cell phone number and her phone number. And I think that's it, guys. That was, if SFMA had anything, Mary, Sarah, did you want to say anything on behalf of SFMA? I know you're a board member.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you are a manufacturer looking for a great organization that provides some wonderful resources and a network of other manufacturers in Southern Florida, please reach out to either myself or Matt Rocco. Be happy to introduce you and give you a little bit more insight. We'll be doing some more webinars coming up and happy to share that information with you as well.
Cool. So just appreciate everybody's time, guys. I think we're going to end a little early, but thanks for a lot of the great questions and thanks for a lot of the great information. Brianna will be following up with you for the link for this recorded webinar. And also we will be providing a copy of the presentation. And then lastly, most importantly, we will be giving you Shelly's contact information, Mary's contact information, Sarah's contact information. I'm kind of sad I only have one person ask for my contact information, but I'll take it. But definitely if we can help you guys in any way, let us know. And these are really great resources between SFMA, SBA, First American, SBDC. So, and Daisy also Daisy. So take advantage of it and everybody have a good rest of the week. Take care.
Thank you all.